Shadowland. They've got fire, they've got style, they make chaos look worthwhile. Partners in crime, heartbeats aligned, together they're one of a kind. They're the couple that slays together, storming the world, it's now or never. Back to back, through thick and thin, in the game of life they always win. Blazing trails, leaving legends behind. Love so fierce, it's one of a kind. We're the couple that slays together. Oh.
Hi everybody, welcome to The Couple That Slays Together. I'm Katie.
Hey, and I'm Brandon.
And today we are reviewing The Conjuring 2013.
So we just got through 5 episodes of classics, and those were some great
this
films.
Is going to be a modern classic.
Yeah,
This is pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely a very popular IP. Just feeling a little nostalgic after finishing those 5 episodes.
Yeah.
I was kind of popping around online and talking to a buddy of mine. He said, "Man, you should talk about how crazy it was, how different it was with movies and video back then." I did some digging. I was looking it up, and I kind of remember this, but did you know that like in the 80s and the 90s films, it took almost anywhere from 5 months to a year to come out to VHS? You got to imagine how long it took to record those tapes, though.
Yeah. I mean, the physical making of the copy is way more involved than digital, like what we get now in streaming and everything.
In the 90s, the bare minimum was 10 weeks. But also, how expensive it was to get a VHS tape. In the 80s, it was anywhere from $70 to $80 per VHS.
Mm.
There was no streaming, nothing like that.
Well, and I'm sure that's a big component of why, like, Blockbuster was such a global, easier opportunity for, middle-class families to be able to enjoy these videos at home.
Yeah. And then tapes were like, 10 to 20 still in like the 90s. Yeah. And it's funny because, we'll get online and, we'll be in social media and everything. And you'll see people like they're sitting there saying like, "Oh, so nostalgic, man. I would pick Blockbuster over Netflix any day now." I bet you if the script were flipped and we had to go back to renting VHSs and DVDs for one day, they would be like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good with my streaming." Because we
have a cap because of the cost.
Yeah.
So like you knew going in, like we were returning 2, we were only going to be picking up 1 or 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was like a maximum of 6 you could rent or something
like
for 4 days.
Yep.
Those
late fees would add up.
Right.
Yeah. Mom and Dad would be mad.
Right. And then moving into like Netflix and Redbox and all those, like, renting a DVD or whatever, you keep it for like 20 days and it ends up being yours. I mean, obviously,
being run out.
Right.
That was the other thing too. If you really had your heart set on this brand new release,
right,
and you show up at Blockbuster and you see the video, but then there's no copies behind it.
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of people in this day and age would go for that.
Yeah. You know what I miss the most is the posters. I miss being able to go to the video store and grabbing a poster. I still remember one time I was at Blockbuster with a friend of mine who I barely hung out with. And, I was looking for the Scream 2 poster. And I was like, "Scream 2, where's Scream 2? And he's never even seen the movies. He's like, "I found Scream 2, and he kept it for himself." I'm like, "What the heck, man?
Where is that guy now, huh? Or like where we are."
Well, it's really cool. The Cheap Flicks movie theater by my parents' house in Battle Creek, Michigan. They still do that. They still have the posters in there.
Yeah.
I know some film companies they still make them send them back.
Yeah.
Or some theaters they'll give it to their employees first.
I wonder when you send it back and if let us know. If they send it back, is it going back to the studio?
Yeah.
And then what do they do with it?
Right.
I can understand maybe like huge, like the substance, so speak in modern terms right now, a substance or something like that. But like other movies that aren't doing as well.
Right.
What are you doing with it?
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Recycling.
I know one of your favorite movies is Haunted Mansion, the new one, the 2023 film.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to review that one really soon.
And then, mine, obviously, Freddy versus Jason. Yeah. I'm so glad we were able to find actual, like, legit double-sided theaters. We in our living room. Maybe I'll pop a photo in our living room, right next to our fireplace. It doesn't work. on each side of our fireplaces, like each one of our favorite films. So it's really cool that we were able to have those in our living room.
Yeah, I kept saying that maybe they should go into the office where all of this is, but as you can tell, there's no room for that.
Well, they can't see everything, but yeah, I mean, that would be more for us, I guess.
I think that should be one of those like maybe bonus features or content or something to show more of what's actually in here. There probably is about maximum maybe 2 feet of unused wall space.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
We've got 24 masks on the wall. There's some Funkos that you can't see over there, but anyway, so
and we'll, if you haven't noticed already, we try to pull out what we have to showcase for you. So as we go further with this, depending on the movie or the TV series or what we're reviewing, we may have to like stare stuff.
Yeah.
Depending on what all you want to show.
Well, and the flip side of that is when we review movies that don't have a DVD release.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 or The Babysitter on Netflix. We'll probably just have to get like a little mini poster to put right here in like a thing. So,
or you could do like the TikTok thing and like CGI.
Yep.
Just like who knows?
Yeah.
We'll go from there. But then again, if we don't have anything, maybe we can have some actual like elbow room.
Yeah, right. We kind of do today.
Kind of do.
So,
well, getting into it.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about The Conjuring 2013, which is the first in the Conjuring series franchise that branches out into Annabelle and the Nun.
Yep.
La Llorona is even considered in this universe.
It's argued by some that it's not, but I consider it, Father Gabriel, the same character. Mm-hmm. So if he's in it, how is it not a part of the universe?
Right.
And the woman Marisol Ramirez who played La Llorona, I've met her once. She's a very nice lady. I asked her, I said, do you consider this a part of the Conjuring series? And she said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get her on the show. Who knows?
I think the basic criteria of something being part of a franchise is if a character is the same character.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not the same actor. If it's the same character here as it is here, just like spin off with sitcoms and things like that.
Yep. So like we said, this is The Conjuring 2013. Now we were together at this point.
Yeah. Dating or engaged.
Yeah, we were dating. Wait, yeah.
I don't know that we saw this in theater.
Well, I was going to say, I was very apprehensive about seeing this. I was not, me, I'm not really big into the ghost. Well, I wasn't really big into the ghost paranormal stuff at that time. I was actually very, very against this movie. Not like for any like religious reasons or for any, it just wasn't my thing. And you'll kind of see in this review, especially when we rate it, I've come more into liking ghost stuff and paranormal stuff. I was very against Paranormal Activity for a while. Then I watched the entire series. Really enjoyed the third one and the fifth one as well as the first one.
Yeah.
So I've changed my ways some, but what's your kind of history and experience with this?
I'm going to be honest. I don't remember the first time I watched this.
Yep.
And it kind of breaks my heart because if you're on our Facebook group, I've already posted that Patrick Wilson is my second husband.
Yeah.
He's next in line.
She would leave me for him in a heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
But it's odd because I was meeting him at a convention and here in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to go.
So I guess now is as good a time as any. I've hinted at it. I've kind of said it in other interviews. I have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
I own it. It is what it is. I don't feel like anyone should feel shame in admitting that.
Yeah.
And there are just certain times of year, events that I in general, I don't do well with crowds.
Yep.
I don't do well with travel. I kind of lean on Brandon for a lot of support in our traveling. I have a lot of fun. Afterward, I have a lot of nostalgia and memories, which is great, but the build up for it.
Yeah.
I say it's kind of like riding a roller coaster when you're like clicking up higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
That's how that anxiety kind of builds as like, it's like, this is coming up. This is coming up. This is coming up.
Yep.
So long story too long. There are just certain times where I just can't.
Yeah.
Well, and if I could transport myself to just meeting him, and this is no offense to anyone, this is all in my own head. If I didn't have to deal with the crowds and I didn't have to deal with, traffic or weather or anything like that, then it would be better. And some people may see that as like wussing out or something, but if you deal with this on a daily basis, you kind of realize you have kind of like a regular flat line of what your anxiety is.
Sure.
And then there's triggers that make it
Yeah.
way higher.
And
So-
I completely understand and acknowledge that, and definitely,
After our years together, Brandon's great at recognizing.
well, and this isn't me trying to put you down at all, and I don't want you to think that, but I know you've gone to things with me, even still with those attributes for less people. Like
Right.
you've gone to conventions with
So
me.
shocking. Yeah.
I am a little shocked because,
Yeah.
well, and here too, I'll say this about you. And again, this isn't a problem because there are just some people that are like this. You don't have the desire or the need to meet somebody from a movie. Like
No.
I've seen you interact with celebrities and you treat them like, and I do too, to an extent, but like you definitely treat them like they're just like a regular person.
Yeah.
And you find things like say like our friend Brittany Mirabile from the Purge election here. You guys talked about like the Diddy stuff like most of the time because that was when you guys
Yeah, at that
when
time.
when you guys first met, like you guys talked more about that than say the Purge or like oh I can't believe you were this person or whatever.
Yeah.
You just you see them for who they are, and I think that's a good quality.
Yeah.
I do too. But I also, it is cool to be able to talk to them about their, if you're going to meet them or, like if you're at a convention and you're like, hey, I loved you in, like Patrick Wilson, for example. At that time, I hadn't even seen this, nor had I seen Insidious, but I was a huge Watchmen fan.
Yeah.
My picture with him is I have a DC shirt on with the comedian pin.
Yeah. Yeah. I could say I fell in love with Patrick Wilson when he was playing Raoul in Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
And that's early 2000s with Emmy Rossum. And as later movies came out with him, I'm like, oh, that's that same guy. Oh, that's that same guy. I find him to be a chameleon.
Yeah.
And I haven't personally seen any role that he hasn't just nailed and been so good in.
Yeah.
And he's eye candy to me.
Okay.
And I have a type. I like darker haired men usually and beards. And he's not really that. So it's kind of a step out for that, but he can do no wrong in my eyes.
Yeah.
And
he's kind of the best looking average Joe, if you will.
Right. He kind of played well. And as through the Conjuring, they have a daughter and he kind of plays like the dad type, right? He's the dad in Insidious as well and everything. But yeah, he can do no wrong.
Yeah.
But this is the beginning of The Conjuring.
Yep.
And this time we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have Brandon do the plot summary first. And then I have a little bit of our interesting things of note, specifically on Ed and Lorraine.
Yep. And I do still have some interesting things to note here.
About the movie.
Yeah, the short things. Yeah.
Yeah. But so we're going to have some fun facts about the movie, but then I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into who Ed and Lorraine Warren, how they were really involved, and how this kind of came about, and just some history behind them.
Yep.
So let's start it out.
Yeah, let's jump into it. So, as we said, we were reviewing today The Conjuring 2013. The horror subgenre of this, I have written down as the ghost paranormal, obviously.
Yep.
Definitely a demon film. Suspense and thriller. Some possession. Haunted house. They do think, the haunted houses. And then psychological.
Okay. The one that I added to was witchcraft. Only because, and we'll get through it when we get there in the movie with our plot summary, but they call the ghost that they see the witch.
Okay.
And that she was involved in witchcraft. And then it kind of twists a little bit as they're discovering who this entity is. But they initially think that it's the mother being a witch.
Yep.
And then they find out that it's a demon possessing the woman.
Yeah.
So you can debate me in the comments, that's fine. But to me, there's a part in there that they do try to put in witchcraft.
This film was written by Chad Hayes and Carrie W. Hayes and directed by James Wan. This film is starring, as we were just talking about, Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren, Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, Ron Livingston as Roger Perron, Lily Taylor as Carolyn Perron, Shanley Caswell as Andrea, Haley McFarland as Nancy, Joey King as Christine, Mackenzie Foy as Cindy, and Kyla Dever as April. Our short plot summary for this is paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren work to help a family terrorized by a dark presence in their farmhouse.
I will say this, speaking of chameleon actors, Joey King, she is now in several different things. Give her mad props for the miniseries on Hulu, The Act, in which she portrayed Gypsy Rose Blanchard. True crime. It's very interesting, and I feel like well done. I know the real Gypsy Rose has come out and said that there's some factual changes and liberties done there. But Joey King actually shaved her head for this role. And she also was just in that Uglies on Netflix. So she's very young here, but a lot of talent. She's kind of the focal child, but yet another chameleon actor in the cast.
Yeah. The opening scene. We open with the Annabelle doll case. The film opens with a close-up of Annabelle doll's unsettling face with its cracked features and hollowed eyes. Two young women, Debbie and Camilla, along with a male friend, explain to the Warrens how they encountered strange happenings after acquiring the doll. The eerie music underscores their anxiety as they recount the story. Flashbacks show Annabelle scribbling notes like, "Miss me?" on parchment paper, despite no one in the apartment owning such paper.
Then did you remember that it started with Annabelle?
I didn't, but I have...
didn't either.
No. And what I find interesting is I felt like Annabelle was a little bit more of a focal point in this film, but then watching Annabelle Comes Home, that one felt more like a third Conjuring movie because Annabelle was in it as much as the other objects. That's what I remember about that film. So it's kind of weird how they just intertwine like that.
Yeah.
Don't know how I feel about it, but again, I'll get more into that as I review this. So
yeah. I remember watching the Annabelle, the prequel. I did not remember that this started with Annabelle. So when we had that first shot, I actually was noting that. I was like, "Oh, we're starting with Annabelle."
Yeah,
interesting. Okay,
I know it's weird. Do you think they did that to kind of move away from the Amityville horror stuff, like this? Because I'm sure when this was coming out, people were like, "Oh, it's just going to be like it's an Amityville horror reboot, but without the Amityville stuff."
Right. And that is something Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved in the Amityville horror house in New Jersey, I believe it was. And that already had, 2 or 3 movies already done by that point.
Oh, well, wait, what do you mean?
The Amityville horror.
Yeah.
The movies, I think there was one in the 70s, the remake with...
Oh, sorry, yes.
I think that they had all... There was 2.
So there's 4 before the reboot.
Okay, by 2013, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. Well, no, but by that point, Amityville horror is a little bit messy because people they're trying to figure out, if you go look at Amityville horror, it drove me nuts when I was collecting all this stuff. I was like, what do I get for Amityville horror? Because there's so many different ones. By that time, I think there's probably 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just the first 4 and then the reboot. And then there's been a lot of really garbage, C&D movies.
Yeah.
Some of them are a part of it, but it's like Amityville in space. It's like, come on.
Right. I would assume, and this is my assumption, that the studio, the writers, the directors, at this point, knew that they were going to attempt to do more than just one film.
Yep.
So this is a way of doing this film that feels kind of similar to Amityville, but then you get Annabelle at the beginning to kind of have something to come back to in a sequel or by the third movie. So I think it was probably just planned ahead.
Yep.
But it's been a while since I'd watched Conjuring, so I was taken back that it started with Annabelle.
Yeah. The doll moves positions and appears in unexpected places, which eventually causes chaos. One night, the group finds a crayon marks and childlike scrawls all over the wall, spelling doom. Ed and Lorraine calmly explain to the family that the doll is not possessed, but is being used as a conduit for a demonic spirit, setting up the paranormal rules for the film. The scene ends with the Annabelle doll being locked away in the Warrens' artifact room, a chilling harbinger for the horrors to come.
I feel like they did a good job. If you are one that would like to research this, you can look up the Ed and Lorraine Warren's actual room. They do a very good job of what Annabelle looks like in the case that she's actually in. But the difference is that the real Annabelle is actually like a Raggedy Ann.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that, licensing and all of those legal background negotiations kept them from using a Raggedy Ann doll. But they did really good at fabricating what that locked basement museum area that the Warrens had.
Yep.
It is very similar.
We then, so our next scene is we see the Perrin family. They're the prime family for this film. They are introduced. So this family is arriving at the house. The parents, which include Roger and Carolyn as the parents, and their 5 daughters, arrive at their new home. The farmhouse is weathered and isolated with an air of foreboding amplified by the muted color palettes and creaking noises of the house. The family dog, Sadie, refuses to enter the house. This small moment foreshadows impending danger, as animals are often sensitive to the supernatural.
Yeah. I definitely made that a plot point in my when we rewatch this. If your animal is like, no, I think that we as humans should be like, yeah, no.
Maybe, but it is also kind of hard to read because, I mean, I love our animals to death, but man, sometimes they just bark at nothing.
They do. But I guess I'm specifically saying, like, when an animal is like, I am not going into that room, I'm not going into that house. I truly do think that animals are more sensitive than what we are. So
the daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, explore the house with curiosity and excitement, unaware of its sinister past. The youngest, April, finds a music box by the lake. The camera lingers on its spinning mirror, which will play a crucial role later in the film. We now see the family in the first night of the house. The parents notice that all the clocks have stopped at the same time, 3:07 a.m. This detail hints at the malevolent spirit's activity. Christine feels someone tugging at her foot while she sleeps.
now that scene got me.
Yeah.
Because I cannot sleep with like a sheet or a cover tucked in.
I have to.
And so we actually have like separate covers.
Yep.
I highly recommend for those in a couple that just can't. We have different sleeping styles.
Yeah, we discussed that kind of in the middle of our marriage. We've been married 10 years. We've been together for 12. So probably around year 6.
Probably.
Ish, 6 or 7.
We're like, no.
Well, I remember we were talking about like doing the separate beds thing and like having 2 twin beds in the room. And, it's not that we aren't in love because everybody's, a lot of people falsely assume that it's like, oh, you guys sleep in separate beds. You must not like each other. You must not love each other, this and that. And it's not that. We are just both very selfish sleepers. She and I, we really struggle. Like the first thing we had to do is we had to get a king size bed, because we both like to sprawl. We both like to twist and turn.
We're both
bigger people. We're bigger. Yep. That's just undeniable. And then, we're
both kind of hot sleepers.
We're hot sleepers. Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, because of the animals as well, we're animal lovers. We don't keep them off the bed.
Right.
You're sleeping between us at our feet, whatever they're going to do.
But then, so then we got to the point where it was blankets and we were like, you took the blanket. I took the blanket, this and that. So it got to the point where we were
for a quilt and the weight of the quilt versus like a comforter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit of a hypocritical sleeper. I like to have the stuff tucked in. I like to have it around me. I like that feeling of secure, but I don't always have to have it on the whole night. I sometimes I'll cover up and then sometimes I'll take it off.
Yeah.
But so we decided like, okay, why don't we get the mattress that like, the dual mattress that, we can have our own, twin XL mattresses and they go up and down. It's the, the lumbar support or whatever.
Look at like we were mid 30s and, I get heartburn and all those things that you'd start dealing with it. And we bit the bullet and COVID stimulus check.
Yeah.
We got a nice bed where we can both have what we need to have a good night's sleep. But I as I was watching this with Joey King, her character, I'm like, that's how I sleep. Usually it's like I'm like all like snuggled up at the top, and then my feet are free.
Yep.
And as soon as her foot jerked, I was like, okay, now unlock new fear.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I kind of noted about this too is the family, they seem to be affected like one by one or a couple at a time in the beginning. And as it flows throughout this and even in future Conjuring movies, like they all have their own experiences.
Right.
Like somebody sees the nun, somebody sees the crooked man, you know, whatnot. So
Right.
it's interesting to see how the paranormal is affecting each person.
Yeah, in the Conjuring, you know, we talked about the little mirrored toy that the youngest daughter finds. She kind of sees this like as a, you know, a play friend, like an imaginary friend kind of thing. You've got the Joey King who's getting, you know, picked on in her sleep, basically, in a few different scenes. And then the older daughter, or one of the middle daughters, is sleepwalking again.
Yep.
And then I believe one of the older daughters keeps smelling like a rotten egg smell. And a lot of this is like, I'm going to keep you awake. I'm going to keep you awake. I'm going to mess with you at night.
Yep.
And then I'm sure you'll get to this in the plot point, but then the mom is like getting bruised without knowing it. So it very much is affecting each.
And that's off camera. We don't see that.
Yeah. Well, you see her, you know, they have adult married time.
Yep.
And the next morning she's like, oh my goodness, you bruised me. And he was like, I did that? What? And as it progresses, mom keeps getting more and more bruising. But you don't actually see her hurt. You just see that these unknown, and even unknown to the character, she doesn't know why she's getting these bruises on her. So it is interesting. I think you could also argue that it affects the dad and his stress. Dad is a trucker and stretched pretty thin with 5 daughters. And you kind of can see his skews be a little short.
Yeah.
And I think that it's explained later. You know, there's oppression.
Yep.
What is it? The 3 oppression.
Oh yeah, I can't remember.
It's oppression, something else, and then possession.
Yeah.
And this is definitely the oppression. Part.
So getting back to Christine's experience, she assumes it's one of her sisters messing with her feet, but she finds nothing. Her confusion and growing fear are palpable. The next day the next morning, the family finds Sadie the dog dead outside.
Worst scene.
Yeah. Her body was twisted unnaturally. This moment, accompanied by somber music, marks a significant escalation in the haunting. It is, and I agree. You know, it's not just the house that's haunted or the object; it's the entire property. You know, it makes me wonder how this affects the neighbors. You know,
Right. And I think that this is a little bit of a callback to the Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
Because this is also a theme in those movies as well. And even in like the true crime, the family reported that they believed that their dog was trying to hurt itself.
Yeah.
So I think that this was kind of the most subtle and graceful way to show, because you don't see the dog hurt.
Yeah.
They find her already gone. So I mean, props that it wasn't more traumatic, but I always hate when you see the animals.
Oh yeah, we see that in plenty of films, and too many, I'd say.
Yeah. Yep.
Then the next scene we see some of the family members playing hide and clap. The daughters play hide and clap and hide and seek. A hide and seek variation where the seeker is blindfolded and listens for the clapping to find the others. This seemingly innocent game becomes a source of dread. In that game, they get one clap, and then you get the second clap, and then a third.
I think so. It's usually like 3 claps. Like what? Don't they like do like?
Yeah.
Like or 2 claps. They do 2 claps, and then I don't know how many you would get.
I think it's 3.
Yeah. So you get 2, like 6 claps altogether.
Yep.
It's an interesting take. I never heard of that game until this movie, but
yeah.
So the first time that they play the clap game, I think it's 2 of the middle daughters.
Yep.
And I think it's Joey King's character is hiding in what looks like it's just like a closet under the stairs kind of situation.
Yep.
and she doesn't want to follow the rules. She
Yep.
doesn't want to clap when her sister's telling her to clap. She's super close to finding her. And mom kind of goes, you're being, I see you follow the rules. So she goes to clap, and the sister that is blindfolded kind of jumps at her. And in all of this motion, they uncover that they actually have a basement.
Yep.
That they didn't know that they had a basement, cellar, an unfinished, definitely, basement. And there's no real electricity down there. So Dad ends up going downstairs and just lighting matches, trying to see what all is down there. And he comes back up and says, well, we've got some more square footage. So that's the introduction to the clap game.
Yep. And so then you're right. While unpacking, Carolyn discovers a hidden door to the basement, and the family explores it briefly, finding old furniture and cobwebs. The camera lingers on the dark corners, creating an oppressive atmosphere. Later, Carolyn plays the clapping game with the girls, and she hears the claps coming from an empty wardrobe.
With the youngest daughter.
Yeah.
So it's just her and the youngest daughter in the house.
Yep.
There's no one else. And I think that's one of the creepier scenes, because you actually see the hands come out of the wardrobe to clap.
Yep. But Carolyn doesn't see it. It's behind her. But it's like,
right.
What I liked
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What I liked about that scene was they didn't focus in on the hands.
Yeah.
Like the camera was still focused on her.
Yes.
But you see the hands, like it's just enough. It's just clear enough, but also blurry to where it'll creep you the fuck out. And the hands clap, and you're like, oh, that's unsettling. It kind of gives you the chills a little bit.
And if you've listened to our previous episodes, I am such a big fan of that, like, audience gets to see something that the main character doesn't get to see. That's so creepy to me. And in this scene, mom is still blindfolded and her back is to the wardrobe.
Yeah.
So she can hear the clap. So she's honestly probably not even scared at this point. She just thinks her daughter is in the wardrobe. So she goes over, and she's still blindfolded, trying to find her in the wardrobe.
Yep.
And she ends up actually like, where are you? And she lifts her blindfold, and then you hear the daughter laugh and go, well, I won. You took your...
Yeah, and you see her pop up behind her.
And she wasn't even in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's beautifully done.
It's a bummer that couldn't take her to Narnia. It's just got to be a ghost.
Yeah.
We continue on with the haunting as it escalates. One night, Christine wakes up to see the door creaking open. She looks petrified as she stares at a figure in the shadows, unseen by the audience. She screams, alerting the family, but they find nothing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's creepy too, that it kind of plays the opposite role. We as an audience just saw something that the characters couldn't see, but now this character is seeing something we don't see at all.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a side note here. I feel really bad because this is probably the second or third time I've seen this, and that's it. We're talking about these daughters. You're saying the name Joey King. I don't know. I don't remember.
Joey King is?
No. What I'm saying is all five of the daughters, I don't even know which one's which. Like, and I feel bad for saying that. It wasn't that memorable for me.
No,
there's only so much.
You're fine. I'm not remembering the character's name. That's why I'm saying that. But Joey King is the daughter that the leg gets pulled with the shorter hair.
Right.
Between her and the youngest daughter that is having the imaginary friend is kind of the more focal of the five daughters.
Yeah. And
then we briefly get the one of the middle daughters that is sleepwalking.
Yeah. We are then introduced to the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine Warren are introduced at a university lecture, explaining their work as paranormal investigators. Lorraine's clairvoyance and Ed's role as dermatologist are established, as well as Katie's crush. Carolyn.
Give me Patrick Wilson with the sideburns all day long.
Carolyn attends their lecture, pleading with them to investigate her home. She describes the escalating terror, and Lorraine, moved by her desperation, agrees to help. So the Warrens arrive at their farmhouse, and they immediately sense the presence of malevolent energy. Lorraine notices the dead trees outside and feels a spiritual heaviness tied to the land. It's really neat because let me ask you this. Do you think she actually sees this stuff, or is it like something for us to see and she just feels it?
That's interesting. I'm not 100% sure what the real Lorraine either saw or felt. I lean more towards with what I read and the research that I did, that it was more of feeling
Yep.
and sensing, and the brief flashes that we see in the movie
Yep.
are because it's a movie and it needs to be visual.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. If you know of or see something different, but I think it's more of a like sensing the vibes was what the real Lorraine.
Yeah. Well, this next part says Lorraine sees disturbing visions, including a spirit hanging from a tree. She explains to Carolyn that the entity has latched onto her family and won't leave easily.
Which I think is another creepy in two different spots here. The first is you don't see the full figure.
Yep.
You just see Lorraine from like the shoulders up, and then you see these like swaying legs. So you don't really know what all she's seeing, right? Or how gory or how scary it truly is, but you can see the terror in her face.
Yep.
Vera's amazing actress with that, the ability to display that emotion. And then the other part is that Lorraine explains that when they first entered their home, she immediately sensed this dark presence behind Carolyn, the mom. But she plays it off. You've seen her already walk through, meet the family. You wouldn't have known that anything was going on. So I think that's another creepy factor.
Yeah. And this was the presence of Bathsheba.
Yes.
Yep. The Warrens, along with their assistants Drew and a police officer named Brad, set up cameras, thermometers, and audio recorders to document the supernatural activity. This is where I kind of noted that I honestly, and I like Insidious better than The Conjuring, I'm not going to lie to you, but I almost feel like they're too much alike in that sense,
Yes.
of they both got Patrick Wilson, which is odd. So it's like,
Always get them flip-flopped.
right. And when you're remembering stuff, it's like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. No, wait.
Mhm.
Oh, wait. That wasn't said. Nope. That was The Conjuring. It's kind of like that. But also, they've got like weird, like they've got sidekicks. Like they've got two dudes doing it, like in this. They got two guys in Insidious.
Yep.
The big difference.
And they're kind of comic relief in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
More in Insidious, I would say, than this,
Yes.
but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting.
There's still some banter between the two gentlemen here.
Yeah.
Because the police officer is a skeptic.
Yeah.
And the other assistant that they had, it was actually helping them with the lecture and everything, and kind of knows, this is
Yep.
this tool does this tool does that, and is kind of poking the police officer.
Yeah.
About being a skeptic.
Yep. The paranormal encounters intensify. During an investigation, Lorraine sees Bathsheba's spirit sitting atop the wardrobe. That was creepy.
Yes.
The apparition suddenly lunges, terrifying Lorraine and the audience.
I noted when I saw that scene, I wanted to pose the question to you.
Yeah, okay.
What is scarier, the seen or the unseen? Because earlier we just saw the hands clap, right?
Yep.
And we have the two daughters where the characters, one is seeing something in the doorway, the other one is not.
Yep.
But obviously, she 100% believes she sees something.
Yep.
So which is creepier, when you finally see the full entity on top of the wardrobe through Lorraine's eyes, or when you can't see anything but you know something's there?
Yeah. I'm going to go the unseen. But here's the thing. It's all creepy. It's all weird. But I'm going to offer a counter.
Okay.
I think it's odd that in movies like this, any kind of scary horror movie, whether it's a slasher, whether if it's anything like paranormal, like whether it's like a ghost or something like that, they're already messing with your shit.
Yeah.
There's movies even like, Chucky and Leprechaun, they're tiny or whatever. Like, I know this sounds funny and goofy, but why the hell don't you just try to kick them or punch them? Like, I like, they're already in the room. Yeah. Like, for me, and again, okay, I'm going to say something that is going to bother some people, but I don't want to impose my beliefs on you. You can believe what you want. I'm going to believe what I want. I don't believe in ghosts or the paranormal. I've said this,
No.
I see it as, well, we've seen so many movies with this. It's just fictional. It's things that we've made up in our minds. I don't want to take away any experiences from you, from other people. It's just for me on this, it's not something I believe in because there isn't a foundation behind it. I don't feel or believe it. When people talk about, there are so many people that talk about different things like regarding death. They talk about God and heaven, like, oh, I always use this example of, well, grandma died and went to heaven, right? But then, grandma was reincarnated in baby Susie. And so now she's living in baby Susie. Oh, but you know what? Grandma was a bitch when she was 16, so she was also reincarnated into a bug. It's like, well, which one is it? Like, you almost have to pick like one to believe in. I forgot another point. But I also just saw grandma's ghost upstairs, and she talked to me. I just kind of feel like there's so much that we don't know about the dead, the across the veil, if you will.
Right.
I just choose to believe that they go to the afterlife, whether that's heaven or hell or purgatory, and they just stay there. I don't feel like us as human beings and human souls, if we do believe in a higher power, whether that's God, whether that's Buddha, whatever. I just don't really feel like I don't feel like we as humans, we're so stupid in real life as living beings.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like we're educated and smart enough to be able to come back as a ghost or as a spirit or as a demon. Now, I do believe in demons to a certain extent, but I just, maybe I'm speaking out of turn with this because this is a demonic presence and not necessarily a ghost. But I just struggle with believing in the paranormal is what I'm saying. And so, and again, if you out there, I know you believe in it more than I do. I know you guys out there will probably believe in it more than I do. And that's fine. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I'm just saying in my experiences and everything that I've learned, everything that I believe, I just don't. I feel the same way about aliens. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So in that sense, though, in this fictional property, right? If I'm in this, why the hell don't you try to kick it or punch it? Like, it's going to piss me off more than anything. Like, leave me the fuck alone.
I think that's also coming from a man's lens.
Sure. Sure. But the dad doesn't try it. He's scared too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's scientifically proven. We all have fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
I think that, one theory, one possibility may be that Lorraine has done that in the past, but knows that it's just what she's able to see.
Yep.
So, like, let's say she did swing a punch at this, demon that's on top of the wardrobe. What is she going to do? Hit her hand on the wardrobe and break her hand? Like, I'm just, posing a theory here as to why that didn't be. But, mentality, DNA, whatever causes us to choose flight over fight.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just their personality, their way.
Yeah.
I
guess the way I see it is if that spirit, the demon, the ghost, whatever, if they can reach out and touch your foot for like 2 seconds and pull you, and then all of a sudden not be there, I've got a feeling that I could probably take a swing if I'm angry enough and I believe enough in it. In that situation, it's kind of like the example that I pull from in this, I guess it would be. Do you remember the film Hook? You remember when the
imaginary food?
Yeah, when the kids are eating the imaginary food, and then Peter Pan, like, he's like getting tired of the kids running around, so he pretends to fling the yogurt or whatever, the ice cream at him, and then he gets hit, and you actually see it. It's like, and then he looks around, and I'm in this now. I feel like it would be a similar situation to where if I took a swing at a ghost, or if I'm mad enough and here's a good example, that movie Ghost with Bill Cosby. He has to try really hard to touch something or whatever. And I feel like it could maybe go the opposite way, to where if I'm pissed off enough, I'm going to punch this ghost. Like, it would be different if I were like sitting in a room by myself and punching nothing, but there's a group of people in this, the family.
And I think that this is why you like slashers more.
Probably.
It has more of the edge of realism, of I'm going to fight this other person or this other thing physically for my life, from hurting me.
I think it goes back to being a kid when, hearing my mom tell my cousin, like, make sure he knows it's fake. I don't draw realism from films or television shows. I know it's fake. This is an escape for me. If it were real world, I wouldn't want to fuck with it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't like.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess to answer my own question, I think that the seeing is kind of more creepy.
Fair.
just from my past experiences and things, I won't get into specifics here, but, I was raised in the church, very religious, absent from the body, present with the Lord. There are no such thing as ghosts, things like that. But in the moment when something is right in front of you and it's not, oh, the corner of my eye, it's not a blur, it's not a fuzzy.
Yeah.
There's something right there. The way that it is on the top of the wardrobe here is like, it's like confirmation, right?
Yeah.
Where it's, okay, we are not talking about, there's an electric issue, there's a pipe issue. There is something actually right standing in front of me.
Yeah. Well,
And in her case, a malicious something, right?
I'll cut this out if you want me to, but I encourage you to tell your paranormal
Really?
story. Yeah, I do, and I actually have had one. I don't believe it was, but if I ever found out the paranormal stuff existed, I would say that this was, and I'll tell my story. But I want you to tell your story first, if you're up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I am. Again, I ask for respect and kindness and love and comments.
Yeah.
We all have our own experiences.
Yep.
And I can't explain it. I can't give it a logic as to what I truly saw.
Yep.
So, basically, I grew up in a ranch style house. If you know what that is, it's usually a bigger front living room and a bigger kitchen right behind it. And then usually bedrooms are in like a hallway.
Yep.
And the bathroom and such. So completely home alone in high school. We had a cat and a dog. And the dog was medium size height, but she was older and kind of pudgier. So she had a little bit of weight to her.
Yep.
And I'm doing the dishes in the back kitchen. And we had a back window that over the sink that you could look into the backyard. And I just remember washing dishes and looking back in the backyard and, I don't know, look at the pretty trees or whatever it was. I was just like, oh, look, and I heard and felt, because we had a crawl space.
Yep.
So if you live in a crawl space, you know that there's it's like a hollow floor.
Yep.
Or not live in a crawl space, but live with a crawl space.
Yep.
It's different than like a cement or an apartment.
Yep.
You can feel these things. So I felt and heard some footsteps coming from my left, which would be the hallway where our bedrooms are. And my assumption, my logical brain, was, oh, Goldie, our dog, is up and she probably needs to be let out. Again, she's older. I think she was pretty blind at that point. So you really kind of had to guide her.
Yep.
So that was my first initial thought. I'm not scared. There's no cold. There's no seeing my breath and, all these Hollywood things that you see in movies. And I look over to my left and there's a man standing right there.
Okay.
Now that sounds creepy, right? You're thinking that in what you were saying, you'd probably swing a fist or something, like there's someone here. This person was not see-through. He was not foggy. He was not, like I said, I heard weighted footsteps.
Yep.
And when I looked over, obviously, when you have a smaller dog, I'm looking down to the ground first because I'm thinking that's who is there. And I see work boots. I see jean overalls. I see like a greenish plaid long sleeve shirt. And he's wearing like, it's not exactly a baseball hat, but there's a hat involved. And he looks at me and I look at him and we both kind of acknowledge like, why are you here? And he puts his thumb through his jean overalls and just kind of looks at me. I wasn't scared. I wasn't screaming. It did kind of feel like the air was out of the room,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a vacuum all of a sudden, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't upset, and it wasn't, oh, he floated away or anything. I took a few, like there's someone here and not in peripheral vision right in front of me. And then he was gone. And when my parents came back home, my mom is very much a skeptic. So she kind of was like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to bed. You're just full of it.
Yeah.
My dad went white as a ghost.
Yeah.
Pun intended. And he had me reiterate a few different times of exactly what I saw. And he took me to our garage and opened up an old filing case that it was all their like family albums that I had never seen.
Yeah.
And
And I can vouch for that because I've seen how many albums your mom has.
oh, yeah. My mom, well, and this was prior to her organizing and putting it all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now it's organized and we have it by year. We know, stuff with my brother and me. But this at this point was like loose albums. And in fact, I think it may have been like a loose album that came from my grandmother that my dad didn't even like put together. Like she had put it together. And he said, I think I've got a picture in here of him. And I'm going, what in the world? And my dad flips open and shows it to me. And he says, that's my grandfather. That's my mom's dad. That's your great grandpa.
Yeah.
And it was one of those like, it was a color photo, but the color had kind of faded. It was older. I want to say it was probably the 40s or the 50s. And he was not in jean overalls, but he was like in work clothes. And those boots looked exactly the same. And the hat was very similar. And once again, I said, well, I wasn't scared. It didn't seem like, oh, someone had, gotten into the house or it was an evil entity.
Sure.
And my dad said, I think that's your great grandpa. And I think he passed away like shortly before I was born. So I didn't get to meet him, or if I did, if it was shortly after I was born, I was so young I don't really remember him. And I obviously didn't remember him in this state because it was like I want to say he seemed like he was like 30 or 40 years old at the oldest. It wasn't an older man.
Yep.
Anyway, that's my experience. And that to me is why I don't think every story that you hear is correct.
Yeah.
But I don't think that every story that you hear is incorrect either.
I thought you had something else happen to you too, like in the apartment or something, like something violent happened between you and your roommate.
Yeah. So, I lived in a townhouse with a couple of roommates.
Yep.
And we would hear a lot of things. And if you don't know what a townhouse is, it's basically like a house, like a 2-story house right next to each other. You share walls.
It's an apartment on steroids.
Kind of. So like our left wall was their right wall. And we would hear different things. We would get kind of freaked out, honestly. I did have a situation where when I was reading my Bible, I was scratched and it was 3 scratches down my back. And that freaked me out. We had stairs that kind of had like the landing, so that like not just straight up, it was like few steps, a landing, and then more steps.
Yep.
And I remember praying as I was going down the steps, and I can tell you with I'm a logical person. I'm a college graduate. I'm a legal assistant. I'm a logical person.
Yep.
Something shoved my right shoulder pretty darn hard. It was not, I tripped over my own feet. I'm a clumsy person. I'll admit it.
Sure.
Something hit my shoulder. So we later found out that the family that was living, that was sharing a wall with us, had some domestic violence stuff going on. And that was pretty gnarly.
Yep.
But again, some of the things that we were hearing didn't match up with what was going on with them. And we would literally watch, the type of faucets where you have to like pull up and move over, not like a screw, but it's like our faucet that we have here. You would literally watch the handle move up and move over for the water to turn on.
Yeah.
And we would come downstairs. It was off when we went to bed. And in the morning, it's just someone's turned on the faucet. It's creepy. There's a lot more that did happen in that townhouse that I don't really want to share.
Sure.
But we were all of sound mind. There was no, drugs or anything like that. And I was not the only one that experienced things in that townhouse. So again, I don't think that everything that you see out of the corner of your eye is something. I don't think that every problem at your house is something. It very well could be electrical or plumbing or something like that. But I don't think that we can write off everything.
That's fair.
I think that again, we were both raised in the church.
Yeah.
And the Bible even says, there's powers and principalities that we don't know about.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents. That's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My couple of stories, I guess, that could be looked at as paranormal. I don't know if they were or not. I'm not going to sit here and claim that they were. I'm not going to sit here and say they weren't. But a year and a half ago, my friend Montavious and I were staying in a hotel in Lexington, Kentucky. It was during Scarefest
I
2023.
remember you texting me about it.
Yeah, I mean, sidebar, one of the best cons. It's like the con for horror, other than like Spookala and stuff. It's I love this convention. Anyway, we were there. We were staying in a hotel about 10 minutes down the road. It was called the Microtel. And
A microtel?
yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. You'd have to look it up. But
Is that the name of the brand? Like the
no, I can't remember the name of the brand, but like it's something called a Microtel. I don't know. It's not a motel. It's not a hotel.
Oh,
It's
a type.
like it was more of a hotel than a motel. Like, it's not like that. It's not like every door goes to the outside or whatever. It had hallways and stuff. But so we're staying in this room, and side funny story, he and I are both bigger guys, and he thought that he got a double bed, but he actually got a single bed that was the size of a queen, I guess. I would say it's
Probably
more of a
full.
full-size bed.
Yeah.
And so we slept like back to back, but like my head was at his feet type of thing. And so but I went to the bathroom and I started feeling a drip on my head, and it was like water. And I'm like, oh, okay. I looked up and it was AC. But when I came out and I didn't say anything about it, I was like, man, whatever. And Montavious goes to the bathroom. He's like, bro, what's this black shit on the toilet? And I'm like, whoa. He's like, what? I'm like, and like there's black shit dropping from the vent and onto the toilet. And it was really weird. And again, didn't necessarily think anything of it, but all night we were sleeping and the TV kept turning on and off.
As I say, you could maybe say that something was leaking.
Right. But that
the
mixed
TV
with the TV thing, the remote was nowhere near us. And it was actually kind of annoying because it kept turning on and off.
Did you
So
try to unplug it?
no, but I mean, so that was our experience. We were kind of freaked out about it, but again, I'm not going to sit there and say it's paranormal. The other somewhat weird paranormal experiences I've had were when people die, the night of like their funeral or like the night that they've died, I've dreamt of saying goodbye to them in my dreams.
That's a common one.
It
I feel
is.
like a lot of people have
Yeah.
that.
But these are also people that I haven't been able to go to their funerals.
Yeah.
My ex-girlfriend's mom, we've talked about this. My ex-girlfriend's mom, not saying anything against your mom. She's a great woman, but I really got connected with this woman more so even with the girlfriend. The girlfriend, I knew we weren't going to end up together, but when we were never even physical with each other. It was honestly just a really odd friendship, if anything. Never even kissed this girl, dated her for 3 months, but they would let me stay at their house. I'd sleep on their couch. And her mom would stay up late when she would go to bed. And so she and I would just stay up talking. Like, she's a great woman. She was honestly like the coolest person in their family. And everybody else was kind of weird. No offense to them. I doubt they're listening. I know they're not listening, so I don't mind. I'm not going to say their name, but like I know they're not listening. But her dad, her brother, her sister, they were all very odd people. Not like me at all. Her mom was
Kind of odd.
Yeah, her mom though, she and I were like two peas. Like, we would just chat. And so I was devastated when she passed away that I wasn't able to go to her funeral. But I had a very detailed dream of seeing her off into the unknown. And again, I'm not saying that's a paranormal experience. I know that our feelings manifest into dreams. We learn about that in Psych 101. So again, that's probably what that was. But I don't have anything else in my life that would be considered paranormal. So I mean, it happened with one of my uncles as well. So
Right. And I will say this too. I think that I think that some are truly more what you'd call maybe sensitive. I don't believe in every, psychic medium, all that stuff. That there's a lot of con artists out there. But what I'm saying is there might just be similar to the way I feel like about animals.
Yep.
Where they can sense the vibes a little bit more sensitive than others.
Yeah.
I think that, or maybe it, no offense to you or anyone else that hasn't had an experience, that's great for you. But I'm also kind of wondering if it's just like, were you paying attention? Like maybe something did happen, but you wrote it off as something else.
Well, I can tell you that remote was nowhere near us.
Right. When things like that happen, where it's like seeing my great grandfather, I don't have any other recourse. There wasn't lights flickering. There wasn't electric issues and things like that. The townhouse, you can argue that it's a plumbing issue, right? It's creepy to watch the handle move on its own, but maybe it is, something's too tight or something's too. But when you have exhausted all of your logical why this could be,
Yeah.
and you're only left with, I don't know, but it did happen.
Yeah.
Then I think you kind of have more of a sensitivity, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
But, well,
let's
back to the plot.
Yeah, let's dive back into the plot. So after the situation where the spirit is on top of the wardrobe, the apparition suddenly lunges, terrifying Lorraine and the audience. The daughter Cindy is violently dragged around the room by her hair. The Warrens intervene, cutting her loose and documenting the attack as evidence for the church. Research reveals that Bathsheba was a witch who sacrificed her infant to Satan before cursing the land and hanging herself. Other families who lived there experienced tragedies, including murder and suicide. Interesting.
I wanted to highlight here Ed and Lorraine Warren, and we'll talk about this with the facts that I found of them as well. They're devout Catholics, and they believe that they need to have permission from the church. And when they meet with the I believe cardinal or priest, that person basically tells them, well, you're going to have to take us all the way up to the Vatican. And even today, it's truly unheard of for the Catholic Church to ordain or approve of an exorcism.
Yep.
I find it so weird. It's like spiritual red tape, right? I'm sitting here going, well, if you are fighting a demon, they're going to take full advantage that you as a human is going to go ask another human whether they can or cannot.
Yep.
Why do the red tape? And again, I'm not saying this to offend any religion in any way, shape, or form. It just seems like a hindrance in that emergency situation of this family needs help. You've got evidence. I mean, and we may talk about this, but the Warrens bring video cameras and tape recordings and all these different tools to show that it's not just a weird feeling.
Yeah.
There's something that is actually harming and hurting. Then why do we have to sit here and wait?
Yeah, I mean,
approval.
Well, the two things I would say to that is, what the hell else are you doing? Y'all just hanging out, chilling in your Vatican castle,
right?
You can't just come over. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is what you're here for.
Yeah.
Part of what you're here for. B, you don't have any United States representation. You don't got somebody who's been blessed at the Vatican that can, hey, let me talk to somebody in that department. You know what I mean? It seems like they have someone on site around, they could. I mean, obviously the Warrens, they go out of their way. Why not? Why not have them be some kind of blessed something or another?
And we're not Catholic, so feel free, in the comments or to let us know.
Please don't hate our ignorance.
I don't know what the tiers or the rings of leadership, how far you have to go to then be approved, and then who needs to show up. Can a priest show up?
Right.
In The Exorcist, or is it truly a cardinal or in all of this? It just, I don't know. It kind of seems like if you had a patient coming in and triage in the ER, and you go, wait, I need to go see the director of the hospital first to approve this.
Right.
It just, I would be frustrated, and it would be.
So wait, are you saying this is sort of like the American health system? It's like the Catholic paranormal system.
That's what. Yes, that's where I'm sitting back going but if you and Ed has basically named himself a demonologist at this point, and your wife is clairvoyant, and you have all of this physical evidence enough that you're willing to go and sit down with a priest and say, hey, ordain this, send somebody, help. Why then to be turned away to say, well, hold on, I got to get a manager on this?
Yeah.
It was just come on, just do it.
Yeah. We then move on to Carolyn's possession. Carolyn begins acting erratically as Bathsheba possesses her. She attacks her children and locks herself in the basement.
Well, they first leave.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when the Warrens are going to go get permission from the church to perform an exorcism on the house, on the property. The family, and again, I'm like, why didn't this happen months before? They pull up and they try to stay in a hotel room. But while that's happening, mom says, grabs one of the daughters and goes back to the house. So the Warrens at this point don't know that Carolyn has taken.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And I actually made note of that. I feel like the spirits. This is where I feel like the film gets inconsistent.
Yeah.
The spirits haunting the Warrens' house. It's very odd to me. One, I feel like it takes away the Lorraines from helping the parents, which, I get, but that might be Bathsheba's plan or whatever. It's just not explained. But it almost takes away from the realism of the story, if you will. And it almost feels misplaced. Plus, it's odd to me, and this is where I feel like The Conjuring as a whole is very odd to me. I know it's based on a true story-ish, so true is very much. There's a wide spectrum of truth here, but it's odd to me that the Warrens keep possessed objects at their home in a one room. Why? Why would they do that? If it were me, I would almost keep the stuff in a storage unit, or if they want to keep it on their property so it doesn't affect somebody else, I'd keep it in a shed or something. I wouldn't keep it in a room in my house.
And he says in passing that the priest comes, 3 times a month?
Once a week.
Once a week. So 4 times a month, basically. Comes and blesses in their house.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, why don't we lock it up at the church then?
Yeah. Well, and yeah, but they have connections to the Vatican, like
Right.
priest. So why not have them keep the stuff and keep it cleansed?
And we all know the Vatican has all the tunnels and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of cleansing, if you're going to keep that stuff at your house, why not cleanse the entire house in just one room? Because obviously we can see the stuff gets out. The grandma's there taking care of the kid. Why just the one room? It just seems dumb to do that when situations like what happened with their daughter and the grandma and all that. Like, how did that stuff even get out of the room temporarily if it's been cleansed once a week? That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that. But I did want to comment on something. Lily Taylor playing Carolyn. This woman is amazing as a physical actress. We talk about actors like Jim Carrey and David Howard Thornton and how amazing they are with their physical acting. Ace Ventura and how he's so, talks with his butt. Or like David Howard Thornton playing Art the Clown, just riding around on a little bike or whatever. She is amazing. Everything she's done, like with The Haunting, which we'll review at some point. This film, I haven't seen it. This is the only movie I haven't seen. She's also in Leatherface. She's in that. She probably, is physical in there too, because she was in the others. She is such a phenomenal actress.
Yeah. And the makeup that are done on her as you're seeing this progression. Yes, she's got the bruises and stuff, but in this specific scene where she's in the basement and they've hidden the daughter to try to keep Carolyn away from the daughter. But each time that we see the mother, Carolyn, she's like another step further into the possession, and the makeup is just beautifully done. To me.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there is something I noted about that, and I'll tell you when we get there. Ed, so the Lorraines come back to the house. Ed performs the exorcism himself as the church's the church's official approval is delayed, so they haven't, like you said, they haven't gotten back to them. Carolyn is tied to the chair in the basement as Bathsheba is fighting back. Carolyn then levitates, and the spirit tries to force her to kill one of her daughters. Lorraine recalls a loving memory of Carolyn with her family, which weakens Bathsheba's hold. Ed commands the spirit to leave, successfully completing the exorcism. And I've always thought that's interesting too. Watching shows like Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and, where things are possessed and everything. It's, this is where, and again, I don't want to offend any Catholics here. This is not my goal, but I feel like if, you use the spirit of Jesus or God or something to expel this, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about believing in the physical matter of, like if you really believe it and you might be able to get a swing off at punching one of the ghosts or kicking it, if you truly know it's there. It's the same with spiritual. Like, I feel like if you in your heart are calling out the spirit. If if you kind of give yourself over to the good spirit, you could be a conduit for the good spirit to withdraw the spirit. After all, this entity sacrificed the baby to Satan, and then is now able to do this powerfully. Why not just your average Joe then able to stop it? It's not like a priest or somebody official is doing it, or whatever. It's someone who should be able to, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, I am not in the Catholic Church. I don't have the specific answer to that, but um, I think based on what I have seen and heard about the Catholic Church, I believe that, again, they have like a tier system, right? Of
Yep.
priest, cardinal, and bishop and things like that. And it's almost kind of like I'm making a joke here, but it's kind of like a choose your fighter like situation, maybe, where it's kind of like, like in Street Fighter, this one versus this one, and these special. I do know that there are certain priests that are allowed to perform exorcism.
Yeah.
I don't think that, you go to the Catholic Church on the corner that will necessarily have a priest that will do an exorcism.
Right.
So I think it's that kind of situation where I hate to say more powerful, but maybe that's what it is.
It's departmental. It's kind of like lawyers or insurance, like
You specialize in.
yeah, life insurance guys might not necessarily do car insurance.
Yeah.
Personal injury lawyers might not necessarily handle divorces. It's maybe
Correct.
the same with the church,
That's my assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace returns. The parents are finally freed from the curse. The Warrens assume that the house. They assure them that the house is safe, and the family reunites emotionally. The Annabelle doll is shown again at the Warrens Museum, safely locked away. Lorraine mentions a new case in Long Island, teasing future investigations. And they also put the little carnival thing in there.
Yep. So I have a question for you about this.
Yeah.
Now that we're at this part. I wrote this down because to what you said earlier too, it's a little confusing. There's a few plot points that are confusing in this.
Yeah.
So at which part do you think the possession, the oppression started? Do you think it was when the little girl found and started playing with the mirror toy down at the banks of the creek? Or was it when they knocked the door open to the basement? Or was it when the little girl then invited the toy in, and then they were playing the clap game, because then we've got Bathsheba on the top of the wardrobe?
Yeah.
Look, and at the end, the spinning mirror is what the Warrens kind of locked up.
Right.
So you're kind of led to believe that it was the conduit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fully make sense.
Right. And this was one of the biggest issues I had with the movie.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to answer that question, I would say D, all of the above,
Right.
just because the dog, Sadie, is outside barking like crazy.
Yep.
So there's obviously a sense of a presence.
Right.
So I think that it's all over.
And at one point, the Warrens, when they're doing their like research, they say briefly that it's not just the parents' house.
Yeah.
That multiple other what was originally owned by the woman that was originally possessed, like, cursed that land.
Yep.
So their neighbors have had issues in different time frames.
Yeah.
So you've got that theory, then you've got, they're using the toy theory. The basement's kind of weird, and that's where where the exorcism takes place is in the basement as well. So it's kind of like, well, which facet actually caused this?
Yep.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah. As the credits roll, we see real life images of both the Perrin family and the Warren family. I thought that was a neat little touch.
Yeah.
A couple other things I had noted in this movie. I really like, at least of the fictional versions of Ed and Lorraine, I really like that they're able to stay in love, have fun, encourage each other. Even though they go through this franchise in such turmoil, doing all these things, they're still able to love and rely on each other. You just see so many people, like in a lot of fictional stories, people will die or, they just won't make it. It's hard.
I like that they help each other.
Yeah.
She has strengths in some areas. He has strengths in and areas. They truly treat each other like partners.
Yep.
I like that. And I like, to your point, that, if you want to say that, it starts with oppression, they've gone through it, right? They've gone through a lot of oppression as a couple, and they're still together, and the true Ed and Lorraine Warren were together all the way up until Ed passed.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to move on to the interesting things of note. I've got a couple that I want to read here before you talk about Ed and Lorraine.
Sure.
The Conjuring is one of the highest grossing horror films of all time. The Conjuring was made on a relatively modest budget of $20 million, but went on to recoup that figure back nearly 16 times over to become one of the most profitable scary movies of all time. It is also the first horror film since 2004's Van Helsing to gross over $300 million worldwide, and the fifth most successful supernatural tale in domestic history. That's crazy. That's awesome. Let's see. The Conjuring sits at number 7 in the all-time rankings as of 2016. 7, which made $327 million. Hannibal, $352 million. Signs, $408 million. The Exorcist, $441 million. Jaws, $471 million. And The Sixth Sense, $673 million, make up the top 4. This story was originally told from the Perron family's perspective. However, the producer early treatment intended for the film to be viewed from the father, the perspective of the father, the mother of Carolyn, and the kids, and of course the dog. But the sibling writers, Chad and Carrie Hayes, were invited to refine the script, and the pair decided to shift the focus to Ed and Lorraine Warren, which, in my opinion, that's probably what set up. That was smart that they did that, because then that's what caused this entire franchise. The film was in the works for over 20 years. The film couldn't exactly be described as an overnight success. In fact, the idea for the film nearly emerged 20 years ago. So yeah, they had a hard time getting it off the ground. But the company responsible for The Haunting of Connecticut, that kind of made it take off. So that was in 2009. This happened in 2011. It originally had a different name. The Conjuring was originally described as the Untitled Warren File Project. Let's see. I'm trying to just kind of say it shortly here. Let's see. Oh, this was interesting, and this could lead into what you were talking about. Farmiga, the two actors, Farmiga and Wilson, spent 3 days with the real Lorraine Warren. The two certainly couldn't be accused of slacking when it came to preparation for this film. The pair, who would, of course, later reprise the roles in future films, they spent 3 days learning about the former long-running paranormal career from the actual lady herself. Indeed, as well as regularly visiting the set during production, Lorraine Warren proved to be a valuable research tool for the set. So, and the real Lorraine actually had a cameo in the film.
Yeah, I have that on here. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and get into your interesting things to note, and maybe we can circle back to some of mine, because there are some other little interesting things I wanted to note here. But you can go ahead with your and Lorraine.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna, the initial scene where Carolyn is reaching out to Ed and Lorraine. They're having a lecture at a local college, and in the auditorium where the extras are all sitting for the lecture, Lorraine was there. That's pretty cool to know. So the real Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were members of the Roman Catholic Church, which again, don't know if that's different than just the Catholic Church, but it's specifically noted the Roman Catholic. They were married in 1945, and on January 11th, 1946, Lorraine gave birth to their daughter named Judy. Their general thought was that the demonic forces were likely to possess those who lack faith. Lorraine was quoted as, "When there's no religion, it's absolutely terrifying." That, and she stated this in 2013, "That is your protection. God is your protection. It doesn't matter what your religion is." So really kind of cute thing, though, because all of these movies have been made based on the cases that they worked.
Yep.
Ed and Lorraine Warren actually met at a movie theater as teenagers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty sweet. Ed described himself as a demonologist, and he and Lorraine claimed that she was clairvoyant. We talked about, so actually Vera, who plays Lorraine, after meeting and spending time with them for the production, she became a close friend to Lorraine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she would, I guess, apparently travel to see her several different times before Lorraine passed. So Ed and Lorraine, actually, they founded the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR, in 1952. And they had actually investigated over 100 cases throughout their career.
Yeah.
Obviously, Amityville is one of the most popular, but there's at least 99 other cases that they worked on. Interesting also, we've talked about, there's con artists out there. The Warrens actually never charged a single penny for any of their investigation services. According to the New York Times, the couple only made money from licensing rights, lectures, and their museum tours.
Yeah.
So if you were a family reaching out to the Warrens, they didn't charge. They came out, they wanted to help you and your family. And I mean, they then possibly did books and things of that, of their situation and what they went through. But it wasn't, hey, give me $100, I'll walk through your house and tell you if I feel something.
It's honestly kind of reminiscent. I know you wouldn't know this, but it's honestly reminiscent of the show Angel, because Angel leaves Buffy and Sunnydale to go to L.A. And it's funny because you kind of think the same thing. Like I remember Angel and Cordelia's encouraging him to charge people. It's like, well, how do you charge people for saving their lives? Hey, I just saved you from a demon or something. Here, here's your bill.
Right. Well, and we see this in the movie The Conjuring. She's out helping them do their laundry.
Yeah.
And just kind of trying to help with their day to day and get a sense of what's going on. And I think to me that speaks to the character and the validity of this.
Yes.
Yes, they did museum tours and licensing and lecturing and things like that, but you didn't have to pay out of pocket for their help.
Right. Your per diem was a home cooked meal.
Pretty much, yeah. And it seemed like even if you couldn't provide that, they'd help you to get a home cooked meal. Getting ahead of ourselves, but in The Conjuring 2, they help a single mom who is very poor.
Yeah.
And can't afford much at all. And that just speaks a lot.
Sure.
A UCLA professor, Dr. Thelma Moss, actually assessed Lorraine about her clairvoyance, and she noted that she was far above average for her clairvoyance.
I got to play stupid here for a second because I'm really confused. Maybe some of the audience members are too. What is the meaning of clairvoyance again?
So clairvoyance is psychic, sensitive, medium. A lot of times, from what I've seen, is like the clairvoyance testing is you're completely sensory deprived.
Yep.
And you are going to tell them what's behind a cloth or on a card, or so there's average statistics of getting an answer right.
Yep.
But then there's this level of that's kind of inhuman to be able to get that many correct.
Yeah.
So she did get assessed by a UCLA professor.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Warrens actually, so I'm going to jump a little bit here. In the 1980s, Lorraine herself worked with law enforcement on a variety of different missing person cases throughout all of the 1980s.
Interesting.
And in 1989, the Department of Justice, so the legit people here, actually wrote and issued a handbook describing of how to work with psychics and clairvoyants because of the work that Lorraine put in throughout that decade.
Well,
yeah.
I see that as good and bad. Good in the sense of, hey, the government actually wants to help, but bad is in like, oh, the government wants to, sink their teeth into this too.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there are other individuals out there that have helped with cases like this. So I know that Lorraine wasn't necessarily the only one out there.
Yeah.
but she is associated with helping with making this handbook.
Interesting.
So in a way, maybe it's also a way of saying, hey, this is how to know if someone's conning you.
Yeah.
Law enforcement folks.
Or maybe she started the Men in Black. Who knows?
Who knows? Their daughter, Judy, actually used to tell classmates that her parents were landscape artists because she did not want them to know that they were paranormal investigators or demonologists.
Yep.
So, Ed actually, let's do this first. The Perrin family was actually on set for the filming of Conjuring. So, Lorraine obviously helped greatly with that as well. But the Perrins were involved. The film was actually shot in chronological order. So a lot of times in production, based on set locations, the time of day that you need, things like that, you can shoot out of order. They actually made it a point to shoot in chronological order.
Yeah.
This film contains no sex or nudity, little profanity, tame and mostly bloodless violence, and brief depictions of alcohol and absolutely no smoking.
Interesting.
But yet it had an R rating.
Yeah.
The sole factor for this was the scare factor alone.
Yep. Well, and that's interesting. Can I go back to one of your points about the house and everything?
Yeah.
So one of the other interesting things to note I have in here is the current owners of the house in the film sued the producers, Norma Sutcliffe and Gerald Helfrich. The pair had lived peacefully in the house where all real life paranormal activity supposedly took place for over 25 years. But after the release of The Conjuring put their home back on the map, the couple suddenly found themselves living in a tourist attraction, and after claiming that they had experienced numerous acts of vandalism, been subject to threats of violence, and found several objects affiliated with satanic cults placed there since the film had first hit the screens. The couple decided to sue director Juan, the Warner Brothers companies, and other various producers. The couple who bought the property back in 1987, 16 years after the events that the movie took place, have also named 5 individual trespassers and 500 interlopers referenced as John and Jane Does in the lawsuit, who argues that those responsible for the film failed to notify them of their plans. So I just want to tag that along to your fact about the house.
Yeah. And we spoke in, detail in an earlier episode of just like how much logistics and ripple effects can really come from a film and its production and its rights. And
Yep.
it is interesting.
Yeah.
Did you know that the actor that played Bathsheba, the woman that was on top of the wardrobe, was actually the film's composer?
Yes, I have that written here.
Yeah, so it's Joseph Bishara.
Yep.
And he actually has minor roles in a lot of the James Wan films.
Yep.
So he actually is the lipstick-faced demon in Insidious and Insidious Chapter 3, and a demonic figure in the Haunted Doll spinoff of Annabelle.
Interesting.
Very interesting. The last couple of things about the actual Ed and Lorraine couple. Ed sadly passed away in 2006, so before this movie. He was 79 years old. He was actually truly afflicted with a number of heart attacks throughout his later years in life. And he passed in 2006. Lorraine passed away in 2019 at the age of 92.
Oh, wow.
And this is the other interesting thing that I have here is that their occult museum that they had actually finally closed its doors to the public in 2019. So she was still working and doing this at 92 years old.
Wow.
When she passed away. The museum, which was shut down for zoning violations, was home to the real-life Annabelle and multiple other artifacts all the way up until 2019. Now, I don't know exactly what happened after that. I would assume Judy, their daughter, took over that. I did want to say that one of the interesting things that I found that is outside of kind of Ed and Lorraine was that in the screening in the Philippines, they actually had the audience members blessed by a priest.
Yep.
So according to reports, some cinemas in the Southeast Asia islands were forced to appoint Catholic priests in order to bless the audiences before showing the film. Apparently, a case of life imitating art, several viewers had experienced a negative presence after watching the Warrens' antics. And so, in an inspired move, various picture houses turned to the men of the cloth to offer both a spiritual shield before the movie and psychological help after it.
Yep, that's interesting.
And if you know of The Exorcist as well, this is very mimicking of The Exorcist. Life, art imitating life, imitating art here. I thought that was very interesting. That the the whole having to get permission from the Catholic Church and up the rings and all of this, and they made sure that the screening was blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to tag a couple things on the end here of that. The film's production was plagued by spooky happenings. You could say that it takes the nerves of steel to tackle a true life paranormal story. And many of the Conjuring's key players had theirs put to the test during the film's production. James Wan revealed that while working on the script one late night, he adopted a puppy. His adopted puppy started staring and growling aggressively at an empty side of the room. The Hayes brothers reported that their phone chats with Lorraine Warren were plagued by weird sounds and static and were often cut off altogether. And that's not all. When the parent and family visited North Carolina set, Mother Carolyn admitted to feeling the same strange dark presence she did during the various real-life incidences back in the 70s, and later making a trip to a nearby hospital after suffering a fall. The whole family also noted that the cool wind which whipped through the set did not move or shake any of the surrounding trees. Creepy.
Well, and I also wanted to bring up, too, on a personal experience when we toured Warner Brothers out in L.A.
Yep.
Do you remember one of the production lots?
Yep.
We weren't able to see inside of it because something was filming at that moment. But the guide that we had as we drove by explained that that's like the Conjuring lot, that they had filmed almost all of their films at one or in part there.
Yep.
And he stated that they had several priests out to bless because they had creepy things happening. Now, he didn't get into specifics, so I don't know to share that and pass that along. But I thought that was interesting that he just was like, oh, yeah, there's the lot. Yep, it's a creepy movie and it's a paranormal, and we have had actual priests have to come out and bless.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
The last thing of note that I'll have, I'm gonna talk about this, and I'm gonna say I'm pissed off.
Oh.
Okay, so how The Conjuring became, I'm going to talk about how The Conjuring became the Marvel of horror, if you will. The Warrens' case files, which you briefly talked about there, have helped create a shockingly successful horror universe. There are franchises, and then there are shared universes. Movies like Halloween, Scream, and The Exorcist are all successful horror franchises. For the most part, they follow one continuous story. Their sequels, requels, and reboots all tend to center around the same villains we've known since the beginning. But The Conjuring is different. Every new film pulls on threads from presumed real-life hauntings, creating a wider universe, much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Except instead of building out its roster of heroes, The Conjuring builds out its roster of villains. The Conjuring universe is based around the case files of the two most famous paranormal investigators of all time. Whether or not their stories were 100% true is debatable, but one thing was clear. They make for great entertainment. Their case files have been used as the basis for horror films since the 70s, but they really gained gained traction in 2018 with 2013 with The Conjuring. In the 10 years since, The Conjuring has become the highest grossing horror franchise of all time, and I say that's bullshit. Let me tell you why. I am so pissed about this because I am so pissed about this because with knowing how hard it was to get Freddy versus Jason off the ground, with knowing, how many script changes that went through, getting these two guys on screen together, it's really frustrating because these guys are giants in media. Michael Myers, Chucky, Ghostface, why the hell haven't we been able to get a shared universe with these guys? You got Winnie the fucking Pooh, for crying out loud, making a shared universe this year, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking The Conjuring for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, why is it that the character killers can't get together? Why is it that we can't have a nowadays Universal monsters, with Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula,
Well, they tried that with the Tom Cruise
and
mummy.
and it failed.
And we've got Wolfman.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and we have the Invisible Man and such, which it's weird because it's
they
like
haven't actually like linked.
right. They did back then. Like, there's the whatever, the House of Dracula or House of
Yeah.
Frankenstein, whatever. But, the point I'm trying to make is it's weird how they were able to make characters out of this and make a shared universe. And it's like, why can't we do that with my killers? Like, come on, man.
Well, I think the answer is in one of our previous episodes where we took a deep dive of Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And
Oh, good point.
and the legality and who owns what and who has sold what, and then the 35 years. And I think that I hate to say it, but it's the players behind the scenes that
Yeah.
the owners of the rights of, and who wants to I don't know right now who owns what.
Right.
But whoever owns whatever they own, are they going to play and be fair with whoever owns the other characters or the likeness of or the name of? It's the legality behind everything.
Well, and you got Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger too. I mean, it's like you can put anybody behind the ghost face mask. You can put anybody behind. We've had several Michael Myers. We've had several Jason Voorhees. But Robert Englund is like the staple of Freddy Krueger, and with him not wanting to do it anymore, it's like, well, I think it's going to be years, if ever, that we see those characters together. But I'm not trying to make it all about them, and I know they're kind of my favorite, and that's what I default to. All I'm saying is it's interesting that from The Conjuring, which we'll get into the rating system, that in my opinion wasn't that much of a strong movie. I just think it's odd that in the last 12 years, they were able to have this huge shared universe, and a character like Winnie the Pooh is getting hit like that. These fairy tale characters, they're all going to have a franchise. They're all going to have a shared universe within the next year and a half. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
And I think, my 2 cents on again, my lens, where the framework that I see things, you would think that these higher ups that own these rights to would see, if I played nice and we made something good together, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And the fans are craving that, connection, that universe built, like Marvel, like Conjuring, that if your bottom line is the dollars, I think that will bring you the dollars.
Yes. Well, and I'm not trying to insult anybody here. I don't want to dive too deep into this, but I think with the success of both Boris Karloff's Mummy and with the Mummy franchise in the 90s, and then seeing a different Mummy, a woman playing the Mummy, I don't think people were ready for that. I think it would have been odd to see a female mummy, and I'm not trying to sound like a masculine or whatever. I'm not trying to sound like men only. I'm not that type of man. But I think that a lot of people were bothered that hey, we're getting the Mummy, but it's like, yeah, not that Mummy. Like,
and we see that in a lot of franchises, right? Where it's like, yeah, you can be kind of creative with these beloved characters, but don't be too creative, all right? Don't push. Gender bending, or even there's, Little Mermaid is my favorite in the entire world. I have a tattoo of her on my back.
Yep.
I personally did love the live action.
Yep.
But I can understand, there is a pushback of this is a beloved character that technically I think she's supposed to be Icelandic.
Yep.
Like, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But what I'm saying is there seems to be in any fandom, I love my character the way I love my character.
Yeah.
And you can change it up a little bit. Okay, I can kind of work with it. But then when you go too far.
Yeah. The too far, I am going to say right now, is Disney's Holes. They are remaking Holes, and they're making it about women. Really? You sure, bro? Like, yeah, Disney, I know you like to gender bend, but you're talking about like little girl kids in slavery digging up dirt.
It's terrible that it was little boys.
Exactly, but you're going to do that to girls?
Yeah.
In 2026 or whenever it's supposed to come out?
Yeah. I'm curious of how it will play. I definitely will want to see it and will watch it.
I don't
But
think I will.
well, Holes was one of my favorites. I truly loved that movie. And Sigourney Weaver portraying her. She was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what it will do. But there are just so many reboots and remakes of things where you just kind of want to be like, leave it alone.
Yeah.
It was encapsulated. Patricia, what's her name? The mom from Home Improvement.
Patricia Heaton.
Yeah. She had an amazing interview where she explained, like, let Home Improvement be what it was. You love it, you respect it, let it be what it was. Trying to reboot it isn't going to work. She explains, there's legal issues with Zachary Ty Bryan. Taron, he hasn't even acted since they wrapped when he was a kid, basically.
JPT's retired.
And she even explained he wants to be more of a director than in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And she's like, and I am not that same woman that I was playing Jill back then. And it wouldn't be. You as an audience member, you love what you watch.
Yep.
And you're trying to recreate that magic that was organic in that time period with those people.
Yeah.
So it just gets to a point where you're like, just let it be the masterpiece that it was.
Well, and I'll give it that. And, seeing, if you haven't seen this, by the way, I know we're stepping out of horror a little bit here, but seeing Tim Taylor come back on Last Man Standing and meeting Mike Baxter.
Yeah.
That was really neat. We at least got to see something, he honored Wilson, because Earl Hines died in real life. So I felt like that was enough. Yeah. I of course I would love to see what the boys are up to, right. But at the same time, I'm completely okay with just having that little Easter egg in there. So
yeah. I think that either studios need to learn how to more respectfully do reboots.
Yep.
Or just let it be what it was and have something new and creative.
Yep.
Anyway, let's
so
rating.
We're on to the death count.
Death count.
But there is no death count. Just the dog. Obviously you could argue that whoever Bathsheba kills and such, but none of the family members died or anything. So we're going to talk about our favorite scenes. What was your favorite scene?
Let me double check this.
While you're looking, I'll talk about mine. My favorite scene was the clapping scene with the wardrobe.
That's what I put.
Okay, yeah, we agree on that. That was that. Just that. I feel like that amped the story of the movie up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I put. I put the mother-daughter clap scene, the suspense and the buildup of it.
Yep.
To me, it's a magical moment when you are feeling it in your own, muscles.
Yep.
that something's about to happen. Something's about to happen. And yes, we had seen this before, so I knew it was going to happen, but it still was that buildup of just, okay, when we're, and then tap, tap. It was done.
Even me only seeing it, I think it might have only been one other time.
Mm-hmm.
I had an oh shit moment watching it again for this episode.
When she was on top of the wardrobe.
I was thinking, no, just the clapping when they're playing the clap game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've gotten to the portion of our episode where we are onto our grading system. If you've never watched or listened to our show before, we like to grade this movie toward the end of the show. So, some people, they'll be talking about a movie, they've just watched it and they'll say, hey, what do you give it for a letter grade? Or what do you rank it number 1 through 10? Or how many stars would you give it? We here at The Couple That Slays Together like to do all three. We like to cover our bases. It's just kind of something we do. So, Katie, why don't we start with you? What letter grade did you give this film?
I gave this an A-.
Okay.
I loved the fact that it didn't rely on nudity. It didn't rely on a lot of profanity. It used what seemingly felt like organic suspense.
Yep.
Of just it's world building. You're in this with this family. What's going to happen next? And in a way, it felt like you were part of the family because there wasn't. They alluded to that mom and dad had their, christening of the new house.
Yeah.
But you didn't have to be exploiting of that, right? You didn't have to rely on, having your actors portraying this on camera. I liked that a lot. I had to knock off for the question of, was it the toy? Was it the wardrobe? Was it the basement? Where exactly this? it seemed like we meandered a little bit to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your letter grade?
I'm sorry to say that I gave this a C+.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of, me just, it's again, and I'm not going to give every paranormal movie a grade like this, because like I said, there are others that I enjoyed. I actually like the second one better than this one. But kind of going back for what we talked about, in Halloween, if this were a standalone film and nothing else happened, plus there's a lot of movies out there like this, like the Possession with Jeffrey Dean Morgan or
The
things like
Haunting of
that.
Connecticut.
Yeah, it's just, to me, watching this didn't warrant a shared universe. It didn't. I didn't think it was strong enough. I really didn't. I still liked it. It was okay. It was fine. It was just average to me. But just in my feeling of it, I wanted to give it a C+. The number ranking, I give it a 7.5. Like I said, it's an average movie for me. They do get better as they go along. I'm more of a fan of The Nun and the Curse of La Llorona. Like, those are my two favorites out of this franchise. The Conjuring 2 is better. For me, again, if I'm someone at a studio that's looking at the future of this, this would not have been it for me. But it happened. So obviously it was successful to other people. And again, feel free to disagree with me, respectfully in the comments. But I wasn't feeling it. What'd you give it for a number?
I give it an 8.5.
Okay.
And I do think this is the first one where we have a pretty large discrepancy.
Yeah.
For most of our grading, we've been somewhat in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I put on here specifically, it hit all of the plot points for a possession movie.
Yeah.
You've got the buildup of the families from the city and they're now in the country. You've got the unknown. You've got an older house where you don't know the history of it.
Yeah.
There is a lot of, to your point, redundancy. But I feel like it's done better in this movie than in other movies. I think that the creepiness factor of sometimes seeing and sometimes not seeing, or seeing only like the dangling feet, gave it more of a creepy. So to me, I thought that 8.5 was a fair.
Sure.
Yeah. And then for stars, I put down a 4 stars. Again, to me, it's everything I want out of a paranormal possession.
Sure.
You get to see the mom being possessed. You get to see an exorcism happen. And sometimes you like to just have the kind of feel good ending where there wasn't a human death, unfortunately for Sadie.
Yeah.
Sadie was. What about you? What are your stars?
I gave it a 3.5, and just kind of going back to what you're talking about, and it really bothered me, and this is why I kind of knocked off points. I didn't like the fact that, we get to the end of the movie and we still kind of don't know, was it the house? Was it the object? Was it was it something outside? Was it the basement? Was Bathsheba all around? I don't know this, and I don't like that I didn't know, and I don't like that I didn't know. And it's like, okay, let's say it's the carnival thingy, right? Why doesn't it do shit to them when they're on their way home in the car? Like, if it's the object, like, are you putting it in a holy blessed box? Like, there are so many details that I felt like were left out. Whereas you have film franchises like The Purge that world build, and the Purge TV series, you get to see where the bodies go when they're dead, and how things are, they're delivered a small thing of ashes or whatnot. You get little details like that to where in this universe where there's however many movies, 10 or maybe a little less, a little more, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But like, we don't know that still, and that upsets me.
Yeah.
So,
and to your point too, at the end where we see, I think it's Lorraine, or maybe it's Ed. Ed or Lorraine, one of them, is putting the mirrored spinning carnival toy in their museum and kind of lock and key. Up into that moment, after the exorcism and everything, I wouldn't have thought that the haunted object was the toy anymore. It was kind of earlier in the film.
Yeah. And if you exercise that, does it go back into the toy? Or if that's not the spirit anymore, like, why even keep it? Like, that's it. Just...
And Lorraine at one point with the Annabelle doll, she explains that the doll isn't possessed. It's using the doll as a tool to like oppress you and mess with you to then try to possess you.
Yeah.
So then why are we holding back? If you're saying that they can't be connected to the object, why are we holding the object?
Right.
it is confusing.
Yeah. All right, so not only here at the Couples That Slays Together, not only do we give it letter grades and numbers and stars, but we also have another rating system. We like to talk about the replay value of this, and what we talk about replay value is a movie can have, or a TV show can have, a great story, but it just doesn't leave much of an impact. It wasn't necessarily fun. It's not something you want playing in, like, say, the background. So, like, but there could be something, that's terrible, or, it wasn't necessarily critically acclaimed at the box office, but it was fun. It's something that you can put on when you're cleaning the house, or you're trying to get some work done on the computer and you want just something playing in the background, or, you want to take a nap. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a comfort. You want to go to sleep to listening to something that you like. So we have it ranked for replay value rating as will watch repeatedly, that you're likely to watch again, you're neutral on it, you can go either way, you're unlikely to watch it again, or you never want to see this piece of garbage again. So, Katie, what do you give this for replay value?
I put this as likely.
Okay.
I kind of went between that and neutral.
Yep.
Simply because I know that we've watched like Conjuring 2 and Annabelle and some of the next movies in this franchise more often than this one.
Yep.
But it is still enjoyable. I still, I apologize. The actress that plays Carolyn.
Yep.
Love her. She was amazing in it. I do like it. It's not one that I necessarily put on often, obviously.
Yep.
But after watching it and enjoying it, I was like, it should be in my rotation to kind of put this on more often.
Sure.
What about you?
I'm neutral on it. I
Yeah.
said I was neutral. It's not something that I'm going to sit here and say it's a comfort movie for me, because it's just meh. But, and again, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. That, the definitely art is an imitation to somebody, they interpret, sorry, it's an interpretation for someone. They like it more than, me, or they might like it less than me. I don't know. But I said I was neutral on it. I said neutral because, if we're talking about watching through the franchise again, you got to start there. So, that case, I'll probably watch it, but it's not something I'm going to watch all the time. So, well, that about wraps it up for us here for our episode of The Conjuring 2013 here, The Couple That Slays Together. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Follow us on social media, guys. So we love seeing new followers. We hope that 6 episodes in, 7 if you include our 0 episode, that you're enjoying yourself. Be sure to follow us. We are at The Couple That Slays on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We have a Facebook group page as well that you can join a discussion. Threads, X, and Bluesky. The only differences with X is because of their character limits, we could only be Couple That Slays. But on everything else, it's at The Couple That Slays. We also have an email address that you can email us. Any questions, comments, requests, concerns, you just want to reach out and talk to us, you can email us at thecouplethatslays@gmail.com. And we also, again, we are still kind of working on our Patreon. I know we've said that a couple times, but if you like our show and you want to give back, we'd love to see the support. And, we promise that whatever goes into the show and the Patreon, we'll put right back into it, whether that's getting new equipment, or, getting money for bigger guests.
I need new headset, really.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
There's been a lot of hard work put into this prior to even pressing record.
Yeah.
Brandon has put in a lot of time and effort. As you can see, there's a lot of organization and just attention to detail and such that Brandon has given to this. And I personally am very grateful for his creativity here. But when it comes with the Patreon, I've set up some tiers from, I think it's like $3 is the lowest, and then on up. But I would love some creative feedback to see what you as listeners and watchers on YouTube would like to see.
Yeah.
We want to have this interactive. We want to see your grades. We want to hear your comments.
Yep.
And, you heard throughout this several times, like we don't know it all. We've done Google research and we are coming to this as an opinion podcast and YouTube show, but we want to hear your opinions too. But we want to make sure that you're doing this respectfully and as kindly as possible to each other and to us.
Yep. So, well, again, I think that about wraps everything up. gosh, we'll see you next week or next time. If you're watching this 2 years down the road, we appreciate you just kind of binging and just checking out what we have to see. And if you're not really into the slashers and came to this because you love the Conjuring and paranormal stuff, we welcome you and encourage you to watch our 0 episode. That's kind of like a little get to know us episode. Just we talk about what we're into other than horror, and we talk a little bit about our personal lives as married couple, as a married couple, and we're just
got us into horror.
Yeah, and we're just happy that you guys are here. So, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time. And I'm Brandon.
I'm Katie, and until next time, enjoy the horror.
The couple that slays together.